I think that question often assumes that the procedures aren't already available, right? And they are.
Welcome to another episode of the Collision Vision, driven by Auto Body News. As always, I'm your host, Cole Stramberg, and today we continue our series on collision repair influencers with someone at the very heart of our industry's advocacy and progress. Joining me is Aaron Schulenburg, Executive Director of the Society of Collision Repair Specialists, or as you may know it, SCRS. Aaron is a timeless advocate for collision repairs and a trusted voice on the biggest topics shaping our industry. In this episode, we're going to dive deep into some of the hot button issues in the industry right now, including right to repair, as well as talk about what to expect at upcoming CIC meetings, SEMA, and what SCRS has planned in the months ahead to continue their support for the industry. Enjoy the show. This episode is brought to you by Hunter Engineering. Are you considering getting into the ADAS calibration business? If so, consider visiting Hunter Engineering's centralized ADAS information hub learning resource and take advantage of a large library of easy-to-digest videos, insightful articles, interactive training modules, education tools, and much more, covering all aspects of the business of ADAS calibration. The ADAS calibration market is large and it's getting larger. So when you're ready to get going, your road to ADAS success begins with Hunter. Visit hunter.com/ADAS-hub to learn more. That's hunter.com/ADAS-hub. Enjoy the show. Aaron, thank you for joining us once again here on the Collision Vision.
Oh man, cool. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be able to have these kind of conversations.
It's always fun when we get together, man. It was almost painful to press record. We started the conversation, got carried away. We're 10 minutes into the recording time. And so looking forward to a good rest of our conversation, really. Let's jump right in. We had you on the show some time ago talking about right to repair. Let's start there. What is the current status of the conversation nationally? And give us an overview again, a reminder of what's at stake for collision repairs.
Sure. Yeah. So, it's funny. I think people always ask about the right to repair, and that's such a, I don't know, it's just a term that I think it gets overused or misused in a lot of cases because it's been applied in all these different cases that aren't really about repair. They're about vehicle data access, and that's not always the same thing. Here's what I think everyone can agree on. Consumers want to be able to choose where they get their vehicle repaired. They want to be able to choose how they get their vehicle repaired. They want to be able to choose what parts and equipment is used in those repairs. And they want a vibrant, independent community that can fix their vehicle for them. So I think as an independent repairer, as an organization that represents independent repairers, I think we agree with that. I think the automakers that we work very closely with agree with all of that, in the fact that their customers and our customers are mutually benefited when there is a strong independent market who's able to fix cars properly with the information that's available. But I think there's a difference in supporting and what is actually consumer choice and what is protecting the commercial interest or the ability to commercially influence what consumers choose. Those aren't the same thing, right? And so I think what we find a lot of the time in the collision repair space is we have customers who come in and they want something very specific. I want my car exactly like it was, right? I want you to do all the things that make it work exactly like it did, that make it look exactly like it did, that make it feel like it did before I was involved in this accident. And I think we're very fortunate in that there is a lot of information, a lot of data, a lot of instruction, a lot of engineering documents, a lot of procedures, a lot of reference material, a lot of recommendations and requirements that goes, this is how you go through that process of making the vehicle like it was before, right? It's designed for that purpose. So I think that there's a lot of miscommunication that happens sometimes at the federal level saying that doesn't exist. And the reality is today, there are thousands of collision repair shops across the United States that are very capable of restoring those vehicles and doing it the way they're supposed to be done. What we've worked on closely with the automakers with SCRS is trying to make sure that those consumers have the choice that in where and how they get their vehicle repaired, but also in shifting the conversation to address some of the obstacles that keep independent collision repair businesses from being able to deliver on that promise of performing the repair properly in the way that the data and the repair procedures instruct, right? And so at a federal level, we announced earlier this year that we had been working with the automakers and other repair groups to create a federal framework that we anticipate will be introduced formally soon. And that framework is called the Safe Repair Act. And really what that is it ensures that independent repairers would continue to have equal access to vehicle repair data as franchise dealers have. It would ensure that consumers, rather than insurers, have the right to decide where and how their vehicles are repaired. It would make sure that consumers have the ability to have their vehicle repaired properly in accordance with the documented procedures that are already available to the industry, and that consumers have the choice of what type of parts they want to have installed on their vehicle. And no matter what type of part they choose, that they're entitled to be protected by the same recall and safety protections. And then additionally, that consumers should be protected from unsafe and improper repairs through a thorough and robust post-collision and periodic safety inspection program. So I think there's a lot of stuff that really is about the right to repair, the consumer's right to choose safety, and a lot of collaborative work that's gone into making that happen.
You guys have been busy, man. It's crazy to see where we have the government and our industry collide and how impactful it is on so many lives and on so many livelihoods. Super helpful overview. Where are we today in terms of the progress being made in OEM procedures and having them being accessible to independent shops? And does this vary kind of across the country, or is there an overarching theme here in where we stand today?
Yeah, I get asked that question a lot, and I think that question often assumes that the procedures aren't already available, right? And they are. And so I think a lot of times that perception that we don't have access to the information we need to fix cars properly is created by people who may have an otherwise ulterior motive and what they want to access from the vehicle or things along those lines. I know that I speak with collision repair businesses every day, as I mentioned, who are capable of doing this. They're in the independent market, they're family-owned businesses, they support their local communities, and they have the access to the information they need. They have the access to the procedures. But a lot of those obstacles that get presented to them are that not all segments of the industry have embraced that those need to be followed every time, right? And so you have these safety inspections, you have structural documentation on how to properly perform panel replacements or structurally measure a vehicle or be able to work on the components within the vehicle or reestablish those functions. All of that documentation exists. And when it doesn't, we work very closely with automakers to identify and correct that. But I think the reality is the assumption that there isn't already access misses what's already available to the industry today.
Well, it's funny, man, because we're seeing, again, government seeping into our industry. And anytime you have government there, we have like a marketing attempt. Who can create a bill that sounds the best, right? Who can disagree with right to repair? That sounds great. Who can disagree with the Safe Repair Act? That sounds great too. To peel back the layers and really get a sense of who the parties are pushing for which outcome, I think is super, super helpful. So always appreciate being able to connect with you on these issues.
And I think your point about who's driving what becomes really important, right? So like, I think for the industry, for anybody who's watching and doesn't know, you have the Repair Act, which is supported largely by groups like insurers and the aftermarket parts lobby, right? So like Car Coalition, LKQ, CAPA, the insurers like APCIA and Allstate, farmers, right, are all kind of behind this Repair Act. The Safe Repair Act is largely being, driven and influenced by collision repair and independent repair organizations like ours and other groups. And then you have the automakers who are also working on that. So groups who are responsible for designing, developing the vehicle, and groups who are responsible for repairing it are really the ones who are kind of driving that conversation. Again, for all the reasons that we just talked about.
Super helpful to know that, right? We don't take sides politically, anything politically here on the Collision Vision. However, I mean, that sort of tells you everything you need to know, right? Based on who has what agenda and what bill or act is being supported by whom. What role, as we listen to this, it's tempting for shop owners to feel completely on the sidelines here, where there are groups fighting it out and we're sort of just watching and have no control here. What role can individual shop owners play in making their own voices heard on these issues?
Yeah, I think a lot of times that comes down to involvement in your community and in your associations, right? I think there's also the ability, if you have political capital in your community, in your state, with people who represent you, use that voice. The reality is people who create, who are responsible for evaluating bills and creating laws. They want to hear from their constituents. They want to hear from small businesses that they represent. They want to hear from people in their community. So I think every business has the ability to reach out to kind of say, here's what I'm going through and here's what matters to me. And even if you don't understand each of the bills, being able to express what your reality looks like helps shape the perspective of what needs to be fixed. And I think, so whenever you can find opportunities to help your consumer tell their story, to help set your consumer up where maybe they want to tell their own story. I think all of those are things that collision centers can proactively do. And if you're not comfortable doing that on your own, again, working with an association who represents you at a state level or at a federal level is a great avenue to kind of like being part of a collective voice and being able to accomplish these, because it's hard. I mean, as an individual small business, you're focused on your customer and fixing that car properly and all of the challenges that go along with that. I don't think a lot of people are paying attention to who's supporting what bill at the state level and at the federal level. And, does that sometimes conflict with one another? So I think that's where associations and voices that pull in that common community become really important.
I think you bring up a few good points here. Number one, for these lawmakers, this is one of hundreds of issues they're thinking about. Whereas for us in this industry, this is paramount in terms of importance. So telling your story is super impactful, and getting involved with your state or regional or local association is a great way to do that. How can people learn more about who's involved and how to get involved in a state and local association? Would love to include any resources there for folks listening where that's of interest.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would start with, I think our website is a great resource. So SCRS.com is a great place. We've got almost 35 state associations that are under our umbrella that represent businesses at a state level. You can find them all on the SCRS.com website. So if you're going, I'm in Nebraska and I want to figure out who my association is, or I'm in Washington State, or I'm in California or Virginia, that would be a great place. You can come to our website. You can find those state associations. You can get involved that way. And I think there's a lot of material. I'm a big advocate, Cole, for paying attention to what's going on in the industry through the news outlets as well. So obviously, Auto Body News is a great resource for that, as is a lot of the other publications out there. SCRS has our own news outlet as well with Repair Driven News. I think reading all of these and being able to take in that information is a great way to kind of like start to connect the dots on who's participating in what area and what voice are they representing.
I love it. Get educated, get opinionated, and then go ahead and take action to make something happen, make the moves happen. Our first conversation together on the Collision Vision was exclusively focused on these issues and right to repair. I want to move on today, but before I do, is there anything we've not touched on with this topic that's pertinent that needs to be brought up?
No, all I'll say is I think collision repairers need a voice, and it's important to have that. And so whether it's coming from you or your involvement, just make sure you're supporting that.
Beautiful. Love it, man. Love it. Love it. So it is no secret. We talked about this in our little pre-show conversation. You are everywhere, man, whether that's in the digital world or, more importantly, physically out there in shops, at trade shows, at events. Zooming out and kind of like an overview state of the industry, what trends are you seeing when you're engaging with shops around the country? What are folks talking about to you and what matters to them?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the conversations I'm having today are around the technology that that is driving some of the requirements that we have here on following procedures and making sure that they have access to that information and that they understand how to go and utilize that. And in addition to the technology itself, I think it's the pressures that they're facing. I mean, a lot of the conversations that I have, Cole, are on the increase of pressure that they're feeling. And I don't think it's regional. I think it's across the country. Pressure on pricing, pressure on rates, pressure on what type of procedures are being acknowledged and reimbursed for, and the challenges that puts the consumer in when they're looking to receive that repair that puts them back into the condition that they were prior to the loss. I think we're seeing some interesting effects of insurers trying to control their own product costs by putting pressure back on the industry. And while they're objecting to rate caps or downward rate pressure on their own premiums, they're looking to apply it back in the collision repair space. And what displaces an insurer similarly displaces small businesses that are trying to also adjust for inflation and also adjust for the rising costs of not just parts and materials, but of the labor that they employ to be able to fix these vehicles properly. So I think those are a lot of the types of things that come to my attention that are brought to the attention of the association. Those challenges where you're starting to see carriers try to negotiate their own agreements with product producers or vendors or equipment manufacturers, trying to secure rates for the shops that are working within their programs. That becomes very challenging and really shifts the competitive landscape in some potentially uncomfortable ways. I also think that we're hearing a lot about the slowdown in business, right? And so you start to look at that pressure you have on pricing and on those agreements, coupled with slower business conditions, where you don't have quite the backlog that maybe you did. I think what I see is it requires a very strong understanding to your business mission and your business vision and the culture that you've built to really be able to maintain what you're looking to accomplish, rather than allowing some of that exterior influence to change the way that you're intending for your business to operate.
I love it, man. These are things that I would echo hearing across the country. I think you have a unique insight, though, because no barriers or walls are up when they're speaking with you. They're going to you and the organization that you represent as a resource, right? As an ally here. And so I think that unfiltered feedback is super cool. Obviously, we have challenges. You're going to be brought with more challenges, I think, than hey, great news, this is getting easier. But have you seen any trends across the industry where we seem to be improving on? I'll use one example, and this is sort of a taking lemons and turning them into lemonade, but with a slowdown and a decrease in claims volume, you hear less about the technician shortage. And part of that's going to be helping us solve it and do some great things. The other part is a lack of demand. So we can take that with both sides of the coin. Any wins, any cases of improving and feeling positive across the industry you could share?
Yeah. I have this unique circle of influence on repair facilities that I get to interact with on a regular basis. And I think many of those who are in our membership and who are involved in their industry tend to be at the front of delivering on consumers' expectations and things along those lines. So I think where we're doing a good job of lifting up is I see a lot of businesses today that really have figured out how to prioritize that safe, thorough repair experience, that customer experience, right, over maybe what businesses looked like 10, 15 years ago. I think there's still a very broad array of different types of businesses and what they're structured like, but I see more and more businesses today that are focused on following those procedures, producing thorough repairs, delivering on the customer experience in a way that creates a very uniform expectation between what they want from their auto manufacturer and what they want from their independent repair facility. And I think that's a real positive thing, right? I think I recall a day, having been in this position for a while, where I think it was viewed as a very radical position in the industry when you were adamantly set on, I'm going to follow procedures and I'm going to do certified type repairs, things along those lines, and that could often be viewed as like a radical perspective. I don't think that's the case today, right? Like that's just kind of like what we expect as the standard of repair in the industry. And then I think there's a lot of work to bring people who may not be there yet today up and help the industry rise up to that expectation. So I think those are all good things that we're seeing. I also think a good thing is there is ample information available today and ample channels to be able to access it. So, social media can bring both benefit and challenge, but I don't think that businesses operating in our space today have any shortage of places to go get help or information or to learn more about the industry. And that wasn't always the case either, right? And so I think there's benefit from overexposure to information and overexposure to channels in which you can go receive assistance.
No, extremely well put. A ton of resources out there. And it's been a trend in this industry over the last few years, as far as I can tell, where there's this openness and this willingness to share that acknowledges, hey, we're all in this together. And a big part of that is organizations like SCRS and CIC and ICAR and opportunities for everyone to kind of get together and put their collective voice behind something bigger than themselves. To that, it's an amazing segue talking about resources. Give us a quick rundown of how all SCRS is helping their members navigate some of these challenges that we talked about, from consolidation, talent shortage, to new technologies, right to repair, everything in between.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of different resources that probably touch on a number of those different types of challenges. So I think small businesses have struggled in general in being competitive for employees. And that is part of the challenge in competing with consolidation and with the talent shortage, right? You have people who pick and choose, what do I want to do with my future? And if the collision repair industry isn't attractive, we're going to see them exit into other areas that have technical requirements, but may provide more. So I think we've spent a lot of time as an association going, how do we help create better opportunities to provide better lives for the people within our industry? Not just for the businesses, but for the people who work day in and day out with their hands on those customers' vehicles, delivering on that. And so we've spent a lot of energy building programs that will do a better job of protecting their futures. So retirement programs that over the course of their career can help earn more because we've leveraged the scale and scope of the association. There's obviously going to be a significant reduction in fees when you've got multiple businesses participating in a plan, and that fee structure is based on $30 million worth of assets versus a business that's got 10 employees and has $500,000 of assets. The employees are going to absorb a lot more of those fees in that singular experience. When we can scale that for everybody, those fees are spread across all the participants. And so what we've seen with our plan, we've looked at some hypothetical examples, but even folks who are at the they're at the start of their career. If they start contributing to their retirement plan, it can accumulate much better for them over the course of time, right? And so looking at how do we develop opportunities like that where they can benefit and their families can benefit. Same with healthcare. How do we pull in better experiences? And we launched a healthcare program a couple of years ago, and it today remains one of those things that I feel really excited about, because I have shop owners who look me dead in the eye with tears in their eyes talking about this experience that their technician had as a result of having better benefits, right? Aaron, it saved their life, right? Or it changed their life because they were, at somebody who was having their first child and otherwise would have been out of pocket $6,000, ended up having a very minimal out of pocket experience, right? Those are things that are impactful to people. And if we can be better employers and a better industry for people to land, I think we can do a lot more to attract people in and attract people to small businesses that can keep up with competing with other larger entities, both in and outside of our industry. So those are some of those types of examples. We're also working on with other entities in this industry who are doing a lot of good work to try to address the training and the curriculum and the resources that are available to attract talent in. So working to influence and participate with groups like ICAR and the collision engineering program, and with CREF. These are entities that are all doing a lot of good work in this space, and it's important for them to have the support and input from the collision repair professionals, such as our members in our group. And so we work very closely with them. And then on top of that, it's the ability to capture all of the billable items that you need to be able to identify the repair process and be able to bill for it appropriately so that you can pay those technicians, right? And so we've developed programs like the BOT and the DEG that are designed to both address errors and inaccuracies in the estimating system with the DEG, and then to capture any missed or overlooked operations, which is what the BOT performs. So I think the combination of those types of technical services with maybe the HR benefit programs, I think are ways that we're working to go. How do we take that support that we get from the industry and reinvest it in programs that can meaningfully change the outcome?
Man, you guys have a lot going on. It's heartening for two reasons. Number one, you're in charge of keeping that all together, not me or anybody else listening. Number two, that we do have these organizations that are behemoths in our industry, representing a lot of us collectively working on our behalf in the background, while we get to focus on doing what we do collectively as an industry, and that's repairing vehicles to their safe and proper condition. So that is awesome. Back, you mentioned the insurance and benefits piece. I'm compelled to mention that we had Richie Seabury on the Collision Vision a few months ago, talked a lot about the program with SCRS. I want to go ahead and link that episode in the show notes for anybody who didn't catch that. A really, really good conversation here, addressing a lot on the benefits side of things. I want to move forward. We talk about what's happening in the background. I want to talk too about what's happening right in front of us via a lot of these in-person events coming up here later on in the year, two of which I want to dive really into. The first of which is CIC. The second is SEMA. So let's start with CIC. Obviously, you are an animal hitting the road all the time. That's been a cornerstone event in the industry. I know you're there often. What can attendees expect for upcoming CIC meetings here? I know there have been some pieces of news out there talking about the need for more candid, meaningful conversations and for different types of representation at these meetings.
All right. So SCRS is an association. We represent collision repair professionals. CIC is a conference, right? It is the collision industry conference. It's where all these segments of the industry come together quarterly to discuss issues, to discuss things that these committees have been working on, and to give presentations. So it's an event. And so it's part of our role and our board's role to be an influential voice at events like that, and to show up and be present, and to try to represent our members well. Oftentimes we'll get members who'll text us, whether that's me or our chair or our board members, and go, can you bring this up for us at this upcoming meeting, because we think it's important to ask.
Love it.
And that's part of what we do, right? I think what people should know, if you've never been to a CIC event before, and if you're in a local market where it's going to occur, I highly encourage you to come check it out, because I think there's a lot of value that comes from getting out of your facility and meeting with other people who may be of like mind, who may be from different sides of the industry, who you may not otherwise have exposure to because they're not coming to local areas. I just think there's a great opportunity in collaborating and working with people face to face. I also think that what's interesting about CIC is it's designed for the attendee. So there are opportunities at every CIC and throughout the CIC event to address the issues that are important to you. Whether the committees are discussing those or not, there are open mic periods, and there's opportunities to bring those issues to the table and ask not just the body of CIC, but ask the industry to address this, right? I'm dealing with X, and I want the industry to talk about this and address it, and CIC makes it a priority to give that opportunity. It was actually started based on the principle of there should always be an event where there's always a place for people to bring up what's happening and bring it to the forefront. So I encourage that. I think the conversations around my involvement in our committee and trying to have more candid conversations, it's a lot like this, Cole, right? Like, so a lot of times you'll have panels of people who sit on the stage, or you'll have committees who kind of like want to showcase a broad amount of perspective, because there is a lot of opinion in this industry and there is a lot of varying perspective. it's hard when you've got 40 minutes and 5 people, right, to really dig deep into somebody's individual opinion or individual perspective. And so I think our approach with what we're calling the kind of the reshaped the committee that we're working on, we're calling it the industry experiment, is to treat it more like an in-person podcast, like a podcast in person. We're not recording it, but it's going to be structured in the same type of way, where we can just kind of have a candid deep dive into what does a relevant issue that's affecting repairers look like today. And I'm really excited. At the Philadelphia meeting, Bruna Moretti, who's the president of ADAS services for Essential Technologies, is going to be joining me. Essential just underwent some really important research that takes a look at the impact of properly or improperly calibrated sensors and what effect that has on vehicle operation and the people and drivers around it. And we're going to have a bit more of a deep dive conversation into what drove some of that research, what they expect to accomplish with it, and what the industry should take away. And I think it'll be interesting. I hope it's different. I think the real objective here is, how do we keep this live event interesting, engaging, and really touching on the things that matter to the people who are in the room and reading about it throughout the country.
It's what it's all about, right? Providing value for the attendees, not for the speakers or panelists to hear themselves talk. And I think CIC does a good job of that, and present company included. I had the opportunity to speak on a panel at CIC at SEMA year before last, and great experience. Terrifying level of access to folks in the industry, where after every panel, there's the opportunity for Q&A. And it's a scary experience for those panelists, I think, to be able to take questions and give some answers on the fly. But I think that's an awesome pivot towards style of communication and content. So love to hear it. Now, that's quarterly. Once a year, we got the big show across the industry, and that is SEMA. I know you and I spent some time together last year at SEMA, had the opportunity to speak at the Ideas Collide portion of the SCRS show, which was awesome. Give me a primer for what you guys have going on this year, coming up in November.
So I think the program is going to look very familiar for people who have been before, but for anybody who hasn't been, essentially, you have the most exciting trade show that you can imagine for the industry occurring, right? And there's just this like spark of energy that happens at the SEMA show that you just don't get anywhere else. Cole, we spent a lot of time talking about like the hard parts of this industry. I think it's easy that week to forget a little bit about like how difficult it is. And for me, and I think for a lot of people, it brings a lot of like, it re-energizes you and makes you realize how exciting the industry is and what potential and opportunity exists. But during that show, SCRS develops an education program. It's called Repairer-Driven Education. We have classroom sessions that take place on Tuesday and Wednesday during the show. On Wednesday, as you mentioned, we also have the Ideas Collide Showcase, which is kind of like a industry-specific TED Talks type session, which I just love. It's one of my favorites because I think it pushes people outside of their comfort zone in delivering on their ideas in a different way. And I think, you know, if you're in the audience and you've got 10 speakers and 10 minutes apiece, right? You're getting these like snapshots of like really just cool perspectives on topics that maybe you wouldn't go sit through a whole class on, but you get exposed to this idea and you get a chance to go and research it a little further. I'm excited this year because we have such a wide array of new first-time speakers. I think we've got more than a dozen brand new faces that have never been a part of the program before. From technicians to shop owners to people from the glass industry, CEOs of companies like Rev and Go Rentals. You've got people actually from the media outlets who are speaking for the first time, and John Yoswick with Crash, and Rachel James, the owner of Torque Financial Group, is coming. Jordan Hendler is actually going to be one of our speakers this year for the first time. Maria Quintero with Collision Advice. We've just got like a wide array of people who are jumping in as a first-time participant in these programs. And I'm really excited to feature them in both the classrooms and the Ideas Collide Showcase. Then you're going to have a lot of familiar faces as well, speakers that everybody loves to see and comes, Tim Ronick and Mike Anderson and people like that, right? So I think we've got this amazing array. This is probably one of my favorite year lineups, just because I think it's got such a great array of topics and people. And really, you can go check that out when you go to the semashow.com and go to register. It's built into part of that registration process where you can actually go and pick and choose. And my advice is you pick a full series pass and you give yourself access to all of it. And it just makes it really easy to go through that process.
Love it, man. It is a can't miss event. You just rattled off a ton of friends of the Collision Vision as well. So really looking forward to that lineup as well. And you also mentioned that spark around SEMA as a whole. And we spent some time together at SEMA. We also bumped into each other in Frankfurt at Automechanica a month or two prior. And that's an amazing show too. But nothing replicates that energy and positivity and excitement quite like SEMA does. So excited to check everything out there. I'd like to get some links for you to include that in the show notes. So anybody who wants to sign up for all of those sessions certainly can. Aaron, you've been extremely generous with your time so far, my friend. I want to land the plane with a couple of kind of questions around looking ahead and predictions on the future of the industry and a reading on the pulse of where we're headed. I think your perspective and your conversations shed unique light there. What do you view as the biggest opportunity for shops over the next few years?
I think you've had a lot of people who have championed specialization over the last handful of years. And I think that's still probably sound advice, but for me, where I start to see the next several years going, especially in light of all the kind of dynamics and pressures that we talked about earlier, I think specialization on expertise around safety and safety restoration becomes really critical. And that may mean certification, it may mean brand specific, it may mean like all those things, but I think there is a distinct difference between a business that really understands what consumers are looking for out of safety and their choice to buy vehicles based on their safety, what safety systems and deliverables and things along those lines. And I think businesses that can harness that can really speak to the consumer at their level about what that means and what their capabilities are in restoring that, have the greatest opportunity in the years ahead, because I don't think consumers are going to stop choosing vehicles based on new technology that are going to keep them and their family safe. And if you can speak that language and you can show your capability around it and you can demonstrate how you've made an investment in restoring that, I think you do a better job of connecting with the consumer. It's really interesting to me when you listen into some of the calls between businesses as people do research around that, or even some of my own family members who've gone through these experiences. There are far too many businesses out there that are comfortable just being like, oh yeah, we can do that, but not really be able to engage or discuss how they take advantage of fixing safety systems. So for me, I think that's the biggest opportunity for shops ahead.
I love it. Yeah, different take than I'm familiar with, certainly. I'm a big believer in specialization, but at the end of the day, whatever you can do to fix a car safely, I mean, that's the primary thing we do in this industry. Number one, everything else is in the background. Could not agree more. I think that's paramount in importance. How can shop owners and managers who might be feeling overwhelmed with the amount of change that we're seeing in the industry, it's change and innovation every single day, prepare for this change and continued change?
Look, I think it's a willingness to reinvent your business on a regular basis, right? And I don't think that's unique to our industry. I think that's every business that wants to stay relevant. The expectations are going to change. The pressures are going to change. The technology is going to be different 5 years from now than it is today. I think the willingness to commit to investment in change becomes the easiest way to be comfortable in it, right? So I'm going to invest in training. I'm going to invest in the tooling and equipment and infrastructure that I need to be able to adjust and adapt as the industry changes what it expects out of me. And if that's your model, and if that's how you've entered into your business with the expectation of doing that, it becomes a lot easier. I think for people who go, I want to continue to do what I've done, and there are a lot of businesses that are there, I think the industry is only going to continue to be more difficult, right? It's not going to be static. Here's what I think is great about it. when we start talking about attracting a younger generation into this industry, the younger generation is interested in changing dynamics, right? They're interested in things that are going to feel different tomorrow than they felt today. And so I think if we can capitalize on that, build a business that revolves around changing with it, I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
Different perspectives, and could not agree more. Change is exciting for a large subsector of who we're trying to attract into the industry and keep in the industry. It's a stressor for many, many others, but I think for every change and every challenge, we have equal or greater opportunity coming from that. So a great perspective and great takeaway there, Aaron. Where can folks connect with you and learn more about all that SCRS has going on?
Yeah, absolutely. SCRS.com is probably the best place. You can certainly find my contact information. If you want to reach out to me directly, my email is aaron@scrs.com. That's AARON. And truthfully, we're looking to support and work with every collision repair business across the US. So you can find us on Facebook, you can find us on LinkedIn, you can find us on our website. And I'd be remiss not to also encourage you to go check us out. Find SCRS on YouTube. It's SCRS Collision. We produce weekly videos that help address quick tips for your team members, that help address customer-facing tips, right? So there are great marketing and training opportunities out of that information. They're all 3 to 4 minutes long, really digestible information, but great ways to help reinforce maybe conversations you're already having, whether that's internal with your team or externally with your customer.
Love it. Going to throw those in the show notes for sure. So everyone take a look there who wants to learn more. Some great resources out there. Aaron, a pleasure to connect. I appreciate your time a ton. I appreciate always having the chance to connect with you. And I appreciate, most importantly, everything you and your team do for the industry. Thank you for joining us on the Collision Vision.
I appreciate you as well. Thanks, Cole.
That is it for today's episode of the Collision Vision, driven by Auto Body News. A big thank you to Aaron Schulenburg for joining us and sharing his perspective on the critical issues and opportunities facing our industry right now. If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to follow the Collision Vision wherever you enjoy your podcast. And do me a favor, leave us a review and share this episode with someone in your network who might find it valuable. And if you'd like to learn more about SCRS or get involved in their work, visit scrs.com and check out a few links in the show notes. Thank you for listening. And as always, on behalf of the Auto Body News team and myself, thank you for coming along for the ride.